Hello everybody, it's Dio here from Firm Gaming, bringing you another Bellwright video. Today we are going to be covering the do's and don'ts of farming and help you become the master of your own agriculture for your village and your conquering empire here in Bellwright. And yes, I did just recruit a farmer so I can steal his clothes and look like this. So without further ado, let's get into it and cover the do's and don'ts. Starting off, we are going to go with a don't. When you are first starting off, as you can see here, we are very basic in tier 1. You do not, by that I mean don't, plant the vegetables. Potatoes, turnips, radish, beetroot, and onion, they are a waste of kind of space at the moment. You really don't need them until you unlock the inn, which is in tier 3. So really, your farms in tier 1, you should have one farm that is going to grow your sage and garlic for your soups or your stews, and then you should have another field which is going to consist of your hemp and your flax, as you'll be utilizing those two things mainly, and so you'll want to have a nice healthy supply of that, and that will free up your forager to only gather berries and mushrooms, which again will help supply your stews that you're going to be making instead of growing the vegetables. The stews are just a way better bang for your buck, so don't plant them before tier 3. This brings us to the first do. Do build a weapon rack beside the farms and put your hoe in it. And what this is going to do is basically when there is any tilling that needs done, your workers will come, they will pick up the hoe from right beside the farm, walk 10 feet, do all the tilling, walk back to the weapon rack, drop it off, and then go back to base instead of walking to base, picking up the hoe, walking over to wherever your farms are, doing the tilling back to the base, and then if they need to do some weeding or whatever's over here, then you'd have to come walking all the way back, whereas with the weapon rack right here, you're just significantly cutting down on the travel time because they pick it up here, work, drop it off, and then they can go immediately back to work. Now, the next don't. Where possible, don't let them plant whatever they want. Because as you can see here, this is supposed to be both a garlic and a sage farm, and instead it is largely a sage farm. They've just planted ridiculous amounts of sage, and similarly over here, they're planting a lot of flax as opposed to blending it between both hemp and sage. But this is kind of like a first tier 1 problem, as you might be limited on seeds. This is probably going to happen, but when you first start off with your farming game, I highly recommend manually controlling the seeds a little bit to get better representation of the goods, or at least sort of better resource of the goods that you actually want, rather than just trusting them to do it for you. This does pull or bring me to my next point, where the do create specialized fields. So this is, as I had showed earlier, we are just crafting both hemp and flax. Obviously, we don't have enough seeds because, again, this is a tier 1, whereas in my tier 3 setup, I have all individualized fields because I have enough seeds. So I have a flax field, a hemp field, a beetroot field, radishes, and all that stuff. And again, those are vegetables because I am in tier 3, so I can actually utilize that. And then additionally, I also have like a full garlic field, a full sage field. So where possible, you do want to set up the rules so that they are only planting what you need. So in tier 1, I highly suggest, like I mentioned earlier, a flax and hemp field, and then a garlic and sage field. And then as you get into tier 2, you will want to add a wheat field, and then when you get into tier 3, you would add in the vegetables, so onion, beetroot, radish, turnip, potatoes, and you can also throw in a cotton field as well. The next don't I have is kind of a personal preference, so I will say that up front. I personally find fertilizer a waste of time. So as you can see, I've scrolled down here before you plant the seed, you can add the fertilizer, and so that comes from the compost, and I just find it a huge waste of time. It's a hassle to produce, whether you're waiting for spoiled food or burning mushrooms or whatnot, and then how long it takes to craft. It's just, in my opinion, no, not any good. It's not worth the bang for the buck. It's just a waste of time. So to me, I say don't worry about it. But on the flip side, a do put down the water collection. So it is actually very easy to build, and it does generate. I haven't had any rain in this game yet, so that's why I'm only at one. But it does accumulate water over time. Ideally, I should probably build another one, as having one per farm is probably going to be the way you need to go. Eventually, when you do get up into where you can research the well, I would dismantle the water collection and throw down a well because its water supply is vastly superior for obvious reasons, and you can have unlimited farms pretty much with that. The next don't I am going to cover is I'm going to say do not let your useless followers be farmers. So if I was going to my work attributes here, uh, basically here we go. We got Matt Hamnet. He is 0 of 4 farming. So the way that the farming works is whoever plants the seed, it is their value in farming come harvest time as to how much of the actual resource is produced. And so you want to make sure that your farmers are the ones that have the highest farming. So just to prove the point here, Matt Hamnet has 17% yield, 12% productivity, but then Grace here has 37% yield and 20% productivity. And obviously, the higher the better. And that's just going to be worthwhile in the resource department because it'll just give you more and more goods, and it will quickly outpace that of the lower tiered people. That being said, if you did have somebody, who was lower, like here, Lubomir is 1 of 6. I could, in theory, make Lubomir my farmer and transition them into it because long term that'll be better, and I will most likely do that. But at the moment, from the start, she was already rank 3, so I wanted a jump start on my production, so I made Grace my farmer. So while I was going through that discussion of why you should not let your lower people be farmers, I did cover my next do, which was kind of self-explanatory, which was do make your best farmers your farmers. Like I said, the production value of doing that is just so significant, especially if you have multiple farms. And with how long it takes the farms to grow, you definitely want to have your best ones doing it rather than having your low people because it's just going to turn into such a big difference over time. The next don't is don't forget to monitor your seeds. So when we go into our resources, we can see how many seeds we have on hand. This is particularly important when you're first starting out, like in tier 1 and tier 2, before you have very productive farmers, which will also give you a better chance at getting seeds. So you'll want to keep an eye on your storage and on your seeds, as well as you'll want to check out your farms to make sure that they're not looking like this and half barren. This farm is only a couple days old, so I know I didn't have enough seeds for it, but you'll want to either go to a herbalist and buy seeds or go farm the resource out in the wild if it's flax or hemp or sage or garlic to collect seeds if you don't want to spend your gold. Obviously, for the vegetables, we first have to go to the herbalist to get the seeds there. So you'll just want to keep an eye on it. It's not guaranteed when they come to full form that you're going to get a seed back. Because as you can see here, I have a lot of these sage ready to harvest, but there's no seeds in them. So that is just unfortunate. So I'll have to do some more harvesting for that to get back the seeds in order to keep it going. So you'll just want to keep an eye on it to make sure that you don't come back here and just find empty fields. They're all tilled and ready to go, but nothing's growing because you ran out of seeds and you didn't notice. The last do that I'm going to cover in this video is I would say you do want to set up restrictions or allotments on your storage. So here I have not set that up because I was doing other things, so I just kind of let my farms go crazy, and I have 2,000 hemp, which may be a good thing, but unfortunately it's also taking up a significant amount of space. Now this is more important in the early game where you may not have a lot of stockpiles or not even into tier 2 we have a barn yet. So you may want to monitor it. It's particularly useful when you start planting wheat because wheat just gets out of hand really quickly. So you'll want to go in and set a limit on how much you want to have on hand, which will then prevent your farmers from having more of it. So like for example, if I had a specified 500 here, they would have, and then if that existed in all of my storage containers that I allowed hemp to be delivered, once it hit 500, they would stop harvesting it, and it would just sit in the farmer's field waiting to be harvested. So once you drop below that, then somebody would go harvest it and then deliver it to your storage container. So I highly recommend, once you get your farms up and going, that you set some limits on it. So in tier one, for example, when you're only using a stockpile and you have it kind of set up, I might say, and you're focusing on just flax and hemp, maybe just set it to a maximum limit of 150 for each while you get up and running until you get more storage supplies, because that'll be ample amounts in tier one most likely. And then if it just dips below, they're just going to go to the field and pick up more and drop it off. That way you don't all of a sudden find out that you're running out of storage and you look why, and you have like 400 flax and 600 hemp, and then you got no space for any of your ores or anything else. So that would be my last recommendation to do as well. So this brings me to the end of the video. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer them. As always, we appreciate all likes, shares, and subscribes, so please click those buttons. And until next time, I hope you're enjoying Bellwright, and we will see you in the next video.